fascinating today. We've all been there, right? The weather changes, a new season rolls in, and suddenly you, or maybe everyone around you, feels absolutely drained, or you come down with a really specific illness. We almost always blame the temperature drop, or maybe a random bug going around. But what if there's actually a highly structured, perfectly predictable internal clock dictating exactly when your body is most vulnerable? Today, we're decoding a 2,000-year-old medical text called the Huangde Neijing, or the Yellow Emperor's Inner Canon. We're going to explore its brilliant, ancient biohacking code that explains precisely why illness peaks by season, and more importantly, what we can do about it.
Okay, let's take a quick look at our roadmap for today. 1. The seasonal mystery. 2. The 5 elements code. 3. Predicting seasonal peaks. 4. Rhythms of the day. And 5. Food as medicine.
Let's start with Section 1. The seasonal mystery. So let's start with a reality we're probably all a little too familiar with. Think about your own life for a second. You probably have a specific time of year where your health just takes a dive, right? Maybe it's a winter slump where your chest always feels super heavy, or maybe a spring phase where your energy is completely scattered, your allergies flare up, and you just feel constantly tense. Now, modern medicine usually points to external things like pollen counts or winter viruses. But I want you to ask yourself right now, why do your specific illnesses or energy slumps peak in certain seasons? Is it really just bad luck, or is there some cyclical pattern to your health that you've totally been missing? The ancient physicians who compiled our source text absolutely did not believe in random bad luck when it came to seasonal illness. They believed in a highly predictable, systemic rhythm. And it asks us to look at our internal environment first.
They actually solve this mystery using a really foundational concept. Heaven and humanity are one. Now, you might hear that and think, okay, that's a nice poetic metaphor. Actually, scratch that. In the context of this text, it is a literal, functional framework. It means the human body isn't separated from the environment at all. It's a micro-reflection of it. Your internal organs are directly linked to the cyclical changes of nature. So to understand your body, you literally have to understand the seasons. And to do exactly that, they created a code.
Moving right along to Section 2, the 5 elements code.
This right here is the key that unlocks the entire system. It's how these ancient doctors took the wild, chaotic, natural world and mapped it into a really neat, predictable medical matrix. Every major human organ is assigned an element and a corresponding season. It's like a giant puzzle, and the pieces fit perfectly. Wood is linked to the liver and spring. Fire is linked to the heart and summer. Earth correlates to the spleen and late summer, that really humid, transitional time of year. Metal pairs with the lung and autumn, and finally, water aligns with the kidney and winter. But you've got to think of these not as physical, literal elements, but more like energetic phases. Spring and wood are all about explosive, upward growth. Autumn and metal, that's about contraction and harvesting. Your organs actually mirror these exact seasonal behaviors.
Which brings us to Section 3, Predicting Seasonal Peaks.
All right, now that we've got the code, let's get to the really good part, how to actually use this matrix to predict when you're going to feel your absolute worst. See, these elements aren't just sitting there in isolation. They interact dynamically through something called the restricting cycle. I like to think of this as the world's oldest, most brilliant game of rock, paper, scissors. In nature, any system needs checks and balances, so one force doesn't just take over everything. Water puts out fire. Fire melts metal, metal chops wood, wood roots into earth, earth dams up water. These aren't just some mystical forces, it's an early, incredibly logical classification system of control. And the crazy part, it applies directly to your organs.
Let's look at a really fascinating example of how this plays out. Say a patient has a condition related to their heart, which is the fire element. When are they going to feel the worst? In winter. Why? Well, because winter is the season of the water element. And according to that restricting cycle we just talked about, water inherently attacks and controls fire. The heavy, cold, environmental energy of winter literally suppresses the radiant fire energy of the heart. It's a completely predictable clash of systems.
The text even breaks down the lifespan of a seasonal illness into a super-specific 4-stage cycle. Let's use the liver, our wood element, as an example. Stage 1. The illness will heal or feel its best in its own season, spring. Stage 2. It will worsen in the season of its attacking element, autumn, because remember, metal chops wood. Stage 3. It will plateau or stabilize in the season it generates, summer, because wood feeds fire. And finally, stage 4, it'll start to improve in the season it controls, late summer, which is earth. So your organ's health fluctuates based entirely on the shifting elemental background of the year. Think about how empowering that is for a second. You can literally track the timeline of your own symptoms just by looking at a calendar.
Next up, Section 4,
Rhythms of the day.
Now get this, you don't even have to wait a whole year to see this cycle in action. We can actually scale this concept down from the macro seasons to something we experience every single day. It's mind-blowing, really. These ancient doctors realized that a 24-hour day is essentially just a miniature year. It's a perfect fractal of time. They mapped the elemental seasons directly onto a 24-hour clock. Morning, when the sun comes up and energy pushes upward, that's spring and wood. Noon, the peak of heat and activity, summer and fire. Late afternoon, as things start to cool down and contract, that's autumn and metal. And midnight, the deepest, quietest dark, that's winter and water. Your internal microrhythms precisely mirror the macro seasons.
And this totally explains how daily symptom spikes work. Let's go back to the liver, our wood element. The text explicitly states that a patient with a liver illness will feel clear and energized in the morning. Why? Because morning is wood time. They're in their home element. But they will feel significantly worse in the late afternoon. Why is that? Because late afternoon is autumn time. It's metal time. And as we know, metal violently chops wood. Finally, they'll be quiet and stable at midnight, which is water time, because water nourishes wood. So if your symptoms spike at a really specific hour every single day, this text says your environment is actively clashing with your internal elements. Which leads us to our final part, Section 5, Food as Medicine.
Okay, so we obviously can't control the seasons, and we can't stop the clock. So how do we fight back? Well, this brings us to the actionable solution of this whole framework. The crucial takeaway here is that this text viewed specific food flavors not just as, a tasty culinary experience, but as targeted internal biohacking tools. Food was meant to nourish the organs and act as a counterbalance to the pressures of the seasons. If the environment is attacking you, you use the energetics of flavor to defend yourself.
Every single one of the 5 primary flavors has a wildly specific physical action on the human body. Pungent or spicy flavors sharply move energy outward, they disperse it. Sour flavors do the exact opposite. They tightly converge, pull things in, and stop leakage. Sweet flavors deeply relax and slow things down. Bitter flavors harden and dry out dampness. And salty flavors soften hard masses. These were literally the power tools in your ancient pharmacy.
So how does this actually build into a prescription? Well, if your liver, the wood element, gets overly urgent, stiff, and tense in the spring, the text says you must urgently eat sweet flavors to relax it. If your spleen gets bogged down with heavy dampness in late summer, you eat bitter flavors to dry it right out. If your lung energy is rebelling and causing a cough, you use bitter to drain that energy downward. You are literally matching the mechanical action of the flavor to the exact dysfunction of the organ. It's so logical.
And the text gets highly specific about where to find these flavors, connecting these ancient medical categories directly to everyday groceries. For sweet, it prescribes beef, rice, and dates. For sour, it suggests plums and leeks. For bitter, mutton and apricots. For pungent, scallions and chicken. For salty, soybeans and chestnuts. Think about it. 2,000 years ago, a trip to the market was literally a trip to the pharmacy. You were buying the exact elemental antidote to whatever season was attacking your weakest organ.
This whole system is summarized by one of the absolute most profound philosophies in the text, Kong Hai Ching Zi. It roughly translates to, the universe cannot exist without restriction. Extreme restriction causes harm, but balanced restriction creates life. Natural stress from the seasons is literally required for the cycle of life to exist. If water didn't restrict fire, the whole world would burn up. But when that restriction goes too far, that's what creates illness in our bodies. Our job is to use diet and lifestyle to prevent those extremes from causing harm, so we can maintain our own beautifully balanced internal ecosystem.
So let's wrap this up with a question for you to really think about today. Think back to that seasonal slump we talked about at the very beginning. If you always feel heavy and sluggish in late summer, are you maybe lacking bitter foods? If you feel tense and tight in the spring, are you forgetting to incorporate relaxing sweet foods? Step into the shoes of an ancient physician for a second and audit your own modern diet. What flavor is your body begging for? Thank you so much for exploring this incredible ancient code with me, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.